And I'm Dinesh, and we have a small organization called Janastu, which uses open source and provides support services for other small organizations. So, so this is one of the projects that we are working with. It's a Department of Science and Technology project, and there are about uh, 12, 13 IITs and very technical kind of groups who mostly do image processing, and they are always interested in knowing how good their image processing uh, techniques are. So one of the ideas was that the department DST thought that let's put it into use, because very often they are using some random images or images from other articles across the world, but nothing from India. So they said, why don't we actually concentrate on one area, like Hampi. How many of you been to Hampi? No, no, no. Okay. So now you can go to Hampi. I'll take you to Hampi. So, um, Hampi is. You heard of Hampi? Hampi was destroyed around 500 years ago, but about for 200, 300 years before that, it was supposed to be one of the really grand places on the earth. So there are lots of stories about how rich it was and how good the king was and whatever. And then, but right now it's in ruins, and the ruins are amazing, and the whole space is amazing. There's a nice river that goes through. The whole environment is amazing. Like just to go there to see like what is it. What is it that makes a place for an empire, right? What what about the environment surrounding that actually suits a place to become an empire of grand kind of thing, right? So when you look at it, Hampi is very interesting because it kind of puts you into like not just Bangalore was there and it grows, but it's as if people went there because of what it was and try to maintain the grandeur of the place that they went into. At least that's the feeling you get. Um, and there's stones everywhere, but that's my story of Hampi. But so what the DST wanted was for them to like go there and say, let me look at this. Uh, there is something of interest. Let's say this thing. Can an image processing person tell me what it is? Recognize it if I show my camera, right? And give me the story of it, right? So it's an example, right? Or I take some pictures and can I stitch it into a panorama and then show it to my friends with the kind of narratives that I want to play to the friend, right? Or I want to kind of take a picture and I have been through with 2 or 3 pictures, maybe 10, 15, maybe 500. Can I stitch it into a 3D and can we do a walk, right? All these are very interesting topics for an image processing technology, right? And if there is a mural, a painting, it's broken, can we stitch it using algorithms? So each one of these, if you look at, you need this extra knowledge. You can't just blindly do it, right? And that extra knowledge should be provided by some cultural groups. Okay, there is a group that's working on bronzes, and they will give you what the material was then, how to, if it's a broken one, what are the ways to kind of look at it in its completion. And without that knowledge, you cannot just say I have the technology, right? You need to merge it with, if it's a mural that's destroyed, you want to complete it, you need a lot of additional data and it has to come from somewhere else, and that's not technology, that has a cultural aspect. That you need to know what was the color that was used, was it organic, this, maybe that blue was not at all available during the time and you might touch it up with a blue, right? So what was the chemical science during those times to kind of even make something possible, right? So it goes into a vast area of the cultural studies and different studies. So the DST for first time supported about 13 cultural groups to give this kind of input data to the technical groups, so that sometime in a year or two there will be a grand spectacle. You go into some space, we still not discussed that, and you will see, experience Hampi, or you go to Hampi with your phone and then you just point to it and it will start telling you the story and saying like where you can go, the next continuation, something, right? So that's the kind of the project, right? So I'll give you a glimpse of it, which is now um, there is a, this is also an image process kind of, but it's a very simple thing, we all understand. It's stitched together as a panorama and you can walk through it, you can move it, you can see okay, something of interest is annotated. So this talk is about
What session is
cultural heritage. Yeah. How to construct your cultural heritage. So we are now interested in, okay, now there is an annotation, right? So the rest of the talk will be on how that annotation is possible, right? How you can see what is interesting for you. Yeah. So that annotation connects you to a set of related tags. Simplest way to think of it is that annotation as a tag, or maybe 10 tags, right? But this tag, if you look at it, maybe it's a Shiva, right? If you go to Hampi, the tag is called Shiva. If you go to Hampi, it's a whole story about Girija Kalyana. That means the marriage of Shiva and Parvati, and that uh, you know mm, the stories related to it, the background, or how the narrative of the Shiva and Parvati came from the mythological times to the modern times, right? You can actually witness it through like the centuries, so you might be interested in one of those things. So you might want to kind of say, okay, Shiva, now I'm actually interested in the the story of the marriage. So that's one link which tells you this relationship of the marriage related thing, right? So what happens when you clicked on that was that you are actually doing a walk. Things here changed, right? Things came from different murals in Hampi, right? There's a text that talks about the story. There are a couple of videos about what's happening in the villages these days, what happened in the parade, what happens, you know. So all this material is coming from somewhere once you showed interest, right? Where is it coming from? Can you imagine? Where should it come from as a group? What do you want to? I mean, do you want an say into this? Like, yeah, sorry.
It's crowdsourced from YouTube or something like that, right?
Yeah, but right. So that's a good starting point, right? The way to think about such a walk is like if you went to a museum or some interesting place, okay. Imagine you went again and again some place. Where are you from? Arun? Huh? Kerala. Where? What's interesting, like a really cool spot around there that you think is part of your heritage? What?
The palace.
Palace. So you've gone there many times, right?
Not really.
Oh.
Not.
It's not a public place now, right?
No.
Oh, but anything else, even if it's far away, where as a family you go, as friends you go, as something else you go?
The problem is I've never been in Pallavanas.
Okay, fine. Somewhere else.
Somewhere else is Bangalore.
Bangalore there's nothing. No.
Yeah, you must go somewhere. Otherwise, you should start going somewhere.
Okay, let's say Fort Kochi.
Fort Kochi. Okay. Yeah, perfect. So you, I mean, don't get too personal, but tell me like 3 times. Have you been there 3 times?
Yeah.
And first time was with whom?
All 3 times all the times it has been with friends.
Friends, okay. But imagine Fort Kochi, you go to once with family, once with friends, okay, once with maybe your work colleagues. The narrative that comes out is different, right? And it's not just you and as part of that thing, but who you're talking to, right? If once you go with your work colleagues and somebody is from Bordeaux in France, what comes about is this relationship between the buildings there and what's happening. But if there is a Dutch friend, they'll talk about maybe the Dutch colonization and they'll be interested in what happened there. Every time you walk and who you walk with is what creates a narrative, right? If you went with your parents and grandparents, it's a completely different kind of a narrative. How it was, what has changed, what is significant for the family, it's that kind of a thing, right? So the narrative actually changes. Unlike in a museum with plaques, you just read, go through, or listen to an audio. When you walk with a group of people, you have your own thing happening, right? And that is the most important thing, right? All these plaques are starting points. Like I'm saying, these relationships that tell you are just clues into like what an expert group has said, like, okay, Shiva is married to Parvati at this location, right? But Shiva's locations are over here, and so all these are there. It's available, but what you want to make out of it is who you're walking with, right? So you might be a person who's interested in natural dyes, right? The whole walk will change now to the interesting colors in the murals. You are not interested in the 90% of the rest of it, right? So can that happen, right? So if you imagine all that, so there are very small things that come about. For example, I mean, an image processing person would say something. Sorry. So there is a Kalyana Mandapa inside. I walk through and basically see more, and there is a mural somewhere. It's not the best thing because I had problems with this thing. But the point is, Hampappa is another name for Shiva, right? So it gets connected to a set of links, and then you get to walk, and then you get to take it further. Okay. So just keep this in mind, and during the talk, let's revisit how this comes about. Okay, this is a small goal, right? But I also talked to Saurabh about how to maybe use Leap, right? So you actually have a room like this. You come sit here, and the presentation need not be like that. Actually, I was telling Saurabh I should be presenting on the outside long thing, right? Because then people, and next time we should do that. We'll bring your Leap, and people will just interact. So so there are various ways to present.
Will it work with that? Fine. Yeah, we need just integration.
Just need to
Yeah. So now I want to kind of take you through a set of possibilities, but all this is working. So it's not just a possibility, but it's a very effective possibility, right? So now let's say there's a mix of things here because I gave this talk somewhere else. Let's say I'm in Amsterdam and I'm looking at like what can I do. So there is the zoo. So I'll say, okay, let me check out the zoo web page. You can see what they have. And when I am looking at it, I see some nice pictures. This is kind of a nice picture. And depending on what my background is, I have something to say. Okay. And you might be thrown off with what you have something to say. But this is a very typical thing, right? You'll tweet. Say like, oh, this baby, whatever, right? Or you will do a status update, or you do something. So all this is taken for granted, right? We are at that state where you will do something now because it's so cute. so but let's say, just to take it push it a little bit. Let's say you are uh, as a job, you are professionally doing a what do you call it? The food. Um, food chain. You are kind of interested in, studying food chain and working on that. And so what you have at hand on your browser is tools that are related to food chain. Okay, so you will pick up something, even if it's a baby elephant, and you'll say a number of things, right? So one is that, oh, it's a baby. Two is that it's an elephant. Okay, but the way I identify it's an elephant is where it stands in the food chain, because that is your profession, right? And two, oh, I am in Amsterdam. The third, I am in Amsterdam. You will say something, right? And you will pick up a part of that thing and mark it as interesting, right? So that so many things happening here. One is grabbing that, right? You know Pinterest? Okay. So what happens there? You find something interesting and you pin it. Okay. So what happens in Pinterest is you find a media file and you say, now I want to say something about this, right? But there is a process. The way you say something about that image is by pinning it to your board. Okay, and then you can comment on that, right? Oh, what a nice baby elephant, I found this in Amsterdam, in the zoo, right? But you pin it on your board. That board, if you are a food chain professional, is a board categorized under food chains, right? All your other food chain interested people will immediately get an update that something was put on the. So I'm connecting things here, right? So it's like tweeting. Other people will also know that something that you pin. Okay, if something goes out there and something goes to your board, and the board has semantics and what category it belonged to, right? And you pin something. So we are extending the idea of what gets pinned, right? So the pinning need not be a whole file, or if you take the whole URL, it's a bookmark. Okay, but if you do a fine grain thing, a little bit fine grain, it becomes a pin. But if you do a little more, you can pin anything, a paragraph, a part of an image, right? It depends on the media type. A part of a video from 2 minutes to 2.2 minutes, right? You can even pin the audio part of it. So whatever you can refer to, you can say something about it, right? So now imagine the web exists with all these references and to even great detail, not just the URLs but further. And you can talk about it. You can say something about that little thing, right? So what you are doing is you are effectively extending the static web through what you are saying to a web that gets updated with conversations, right? So next, let's see what happens. There's somebody else who comes there, and maybe it's a mother who's effectively in the domain of family sentiments kind of thing, right? And they'll just say, oh, it's a mother and a baby, sweet one, right? And so with these two, what can you do? And now the third person who comes visiting the page is an Indian cyclist mother, the profile of the person who's browsing. Yeah, and they're kind of interested in the conversations or like the walk on the zoo. And one possibility is that these pictures will come to the page. Like you are not showing links, you are not going somewhere, you are not. So whatever that was pinned will be brought to the page, right? So effectively, the Amsterdam Zoo page got extended to the person who's visiting the page with the most interesting things there, right? The first one is children washing elephants in India. The second one is mother cycling with a child in Amsterdam. The third one is a Dutch photographer taking a picture of a baby elephant in Africa. Okay, some kind of a, so there is a service that makes sense of these things that we said and user profile and pushes these additional things to the browser when you're browsing. Okay, that's the model. Okay, so any questions or is it all clear? So basically, yeah, there are so many things. So we can keep augmenting the pages as we browse. Okay, and so one thing is, okay, now let's say there is a web page and we pick any element of it and we have something to say and also relate it to something else. Okay.
So it's so the profile of the user will be coming
From the browser.
From the browser.
Nobody else need to know. Yeah.
So first you have to set up like saying this is my.
Yeah. So you will be using something like a browser add-on typically when you use these tools, and that one will say who you are. I mean, it's an option. Otherwise, you get the more you provide, but it's not like the control is all of the browser. Okay, it's a dynamic query that goes and it's kind of so. And then you can choose the styles, right? How you want the augmentation, like the page to be augmented. So it's actually effectively a distributed, decentralized model of the web, but how to add conversations to it, how to get an updated page, right? So let's say I go to the Barcamp page and Saurabh's number is wrong. It's not even there. Okay. So let's say I want to okay, at least for my friends, I can tell what is Saurabh's number. I just have to do one suite. Suite stands for semantic web tweeting. Okay. So I'll just do one suite, and now if she comes there and she's my friend and she trusts me, so the Barcamp web page now will look to appear to her with Saurabh's number or an updated Saurabh's number. Okay. Basically that's the model. Now you can see how effectively the narrative changes when you go with your friends, with somebody else. Okay, right? So basically this is the architecture now. Whatever you are suiting is again a distributed, decentralized thing. It doesn't go to Twitter or Twitter or anywhere. You can put it anywhere you want. Right? It's like blogging. So you have one repository of yours. You can just keep saying into that repository. Right? But it could be a collective one. We could all put it in the Barcamp repository. Right? Or you can choose to put it in a public repository. But the point is that it's not like one thing like Wikipedia or Twitter or Facebook. It's completely distributed thing, right? So as long as somebody knows where these stores are, okay, and what they
Just to interrupt you, is there any standard such storage mechanisms? Last year there was some talk about decentralized social networks, right? So it's like, you keep your own data wherever you want and it's like peer-to-peer.
Yeah. So there are standards being developed. I mean, there is a whole group on social semantic web on like the FOA, friend of a friend thing, and there's a lot of. I mean, this is all about semantic web and how the XML is used for these kind of things. But you're right. I mean, we need standards, right? If you go to schema.org, it's set up by major companies because they realize now that they need to come say like what is a geolocation, what is a region, what is something, to more, what is a food thing, what is slowly domain by domain they are saying, okay, we call this a standard now, and the big players will start using it and right becomes a standard. And but there is but no standard is ever enough, right? Because in the end Arun has to talk about what was that village or town, Pandalam, right? And very specific things about Pandalam, right? And So, you know, so there might be only 1,000 people who understand it. So the standard will get extended to these 1,000 people. So the model should accommodate that extensions of it. So only those 1,000 people will be able to deal with it. The rest not. So so now how are we using this in our project, right? So first idea was, of course, for all the collaborative thing, all these groups will put stuff in a wiki. We wait for 2 years, wait for something, we tell everybody, nobody puts anything. But we realize that they're all building their own websites. Okay, they're putting a lot of effort there, because in the end that's something that they can keep, right? Wiki is a contribution to a common place, but a website, all cultural groups have a very specific way of building a website. They don't even like wikis. They don't like the look of it. They don't like how to, what it means that somebody can edit your stuff. You are the owner of it, champion it, all those things, right? You have to say it, and you have to say, this is my work, right? So they're all building it. So that's when we realize the best thing is to promote that activity. Go ahead and build it, right? Because then they will also maintain it. They will be going off forever, right? But we still are interested in the knowledge base. How do we bring the knowledge base? When each one of you has your own space, okay, we're all part of this project. How do we build this knowledge base? That's the trick, right? That's when we came up with suiting, right? So once the thing is built, right, you still need to connect the dots, and somebody else to say, like, this is the official set of tags, go ahead and use it, right? But since it's more technical, they call it ontologies. An ontology is a set of tags but with relatedness to other tags, roughly speaking. That's what you saw on the right side. Okay. So now we can take some examples. So let's say I go to a page with this tool, and the bar will come there. You can annotate, you can see others' annotations, or you can publish something. Okay. So let's say I want to annotate. I'm trying to now browsing. Okay. I can go to any web page, I can browse, and I can say, oh, this is related to Hampa, this is related to something. Basically now I'm showing the process of suiting, right? And so when I annotate, I can pick up stuff, right? So I can make a joke. And so I call that person who's in charge of the project Murali Mohan something, Hampa, basically. Now I can say, okay, is Sivaputra, right? And I add it. So now if I publish, you will see something like that. Okay. So what happened here? Is
Dinesh, I can use the mouse better.
yeah. So here there is a. So I was the BCB, the person who's suiting, right? So the distinct thing about this and a typical semantic web kind of discussion is semantic web is basically what's the word, impoverished now. It's all like big data, companies putting the thing out, government putting the thing out. There are no people have been completely removed, right? There are only people doing mashups and analytics, and playing the game of like doing the analytics and something with the big data and showing out. It's important because it makes people put data out, but what is missing is the people in it, and the people are all grabbed by big social networking platforms. I go play in your Facebook. I go participate in your Twitter. I go something, right? So the big data of people collaborating on Twitter is with Twitter. Big data of people collaborating on Facebook is with Facebook, right? But like what you are saying, there are lots of activities who doing like the what are the Facebook alternatives? The
The Kickstarter or
huh?
Open social.
Okay.
It's Facebook, it's
Yeah.
Diaspora.
Yeah.
Diaspora.
Thank you. Diaspora. Yeah. So there are various projects like that. Okay. So that you can have your own Facebook for your own community, right? But what is the basic foundational element, building block for this thing, right? So we are saying something as simple as this can be. Now I can do a Facebook. Okay, I have my web page, okay, which is from the classical web page in a distributed decentralized manner, okay, and people talk about things that are related to me using that as a reference, and everything will come to my page, okay. And so we are only dealing with the interconnections made, and depending on the stores that are of interest, which service that I use. So any of these, Diaspora, Facebook, anything can be built with this. Okay, that's the fundamental idea. Okay. And we are showing that we are just using it in 2 or 3 of our projects. So here what happens is a person, okay, and if you like that person, there are people who curate. For example, in this heritage, Indian digital heritage, there will be an expert group. They will say, no, what we call knowledge is the people that we recognize as knowledgeable. Somebody else is saying we are not sure we wanted to go into that. So that's called a process of curation. Okay, that doesn't mean somebody else cannot say it. Only if you go through their curated space, you won't see what somebody else is saying. You'll see what only the experts are saying, right? But if that somebody else is another service is okaying that, okay, you can just go through that service, okay. Or in the browser side, you can say doesn't matter what the expert group is saying. I always want what my friends in the Facebook are saying. So because you know that there's the fun part, there's whatever, they make you laugh, whatever, right? So you can dynamically, the browser can cascade the curation, who it allows, the things to be granted coming into your browser, right? So the IDH MAUL is, like I said, MAUL is a multimedia ontology language. IDH is Indian digital heritage. So that will give the first space of tags and stuff like that. So as long as you are using that, you get appropriate tags like that, right? And this thing is the XPath of what I tagged. So I can tag anything, and now that's complete, which tells me that this paragraph here, this small note here, is marked as Shiva Purana. Okay. I don't think that guy will be very happy, but so I can see what the annotations are, right, in this page. So I can browse. So these are all what other people have tweeted. Okay, but this is a very dull way of seeing the annotations. More interesting way would be like what I showed you before. Right? So, yeah. So I'll show you one more example, and then we can go for questions. So now when you're picking like small paragraphs, small parts of the thing, it's very media sensitive, right? If you're that's why Pinterest will let you pin only photographs and videos, right? So here we are interested in pinning just about anything. So now you are looking at a Google map and you want to pin something, right? This area, okay, that's my town again, I forgot, but yeah. What is it?
Pandalam.
Pandalam. Yeah. So you want to say like this, Pandalam, and this is where I played. Something. Right? You want to mark. You're just using the map. You want to pin. You want to say something about that, right? So, what's the thing here? Okay. So now, in that sense, this is like a Google map. I mean, it's OpenStreet like. It's the mural here is 35 feet by 12 feet. Okay, it's huge. And when we have taken the picture and stitched it together, the output is like 2 gigabytes. Right? But you want to see it, right? You want to be able to pin it, you want to see different parts of it, you want to walk through, right? So we had to present it like a, it'll take some time. But so you can see really fine details because it's such a big file, just like walking through, zooming in into the map areas, right? You can see how beautiful this. Just 1 hour from Bangalore, place called Lepakshi. If you want to ever do a day trip to a very classical historical place, it's a very beautiful place. Okay. So anyway, you can see where I'm getting at, right? You can go to the fine detail and you'll see an interesting jewel and you can maybe tag it. Okay, you pick that thing and you say this is the silver jewel also found in that kind of a thing, and you made a relationship, or you have another picture somewhere else and you can say compare this to that thing found in the museum, right? So creating these relationships.
Nice idea.
And all it does is create one suite like I showed you and put it somewhere. There is nothing more to it, right? But if there is another service which says I know what to do with the suites, for example in this case you see these boxes coming, that other service is putting those back because I am walking, asking that, subscribing to that service, and it's bringing that boxes back. Otherwise these are completely two different things. One messenger messages, another aggregator aggregates. Okay, these are not connected. It's like you created your web page and Google indexed it and gave a service, right? You are not saying, oh, nobody sees it, so I'll always put it in Facebook. Right? That's what people are doing now. So you give everything to Facebook, right? But the point is that it's as simple as that. Yeah. So I can show the tagging process and all, but it's very similar to what you've seen, right? So I select something and it tags and it goes through the. Just stop here. Yeah. So my name is Dinesh. I'm part of this Genestu, which is an organization. We're doing a few things. 1, 2, 3. Have you all seen this somewhere? Nobody? You have? Okay, great. So, yeah, I just talked about Sweet Web. Okay, the Sweet Web is also the foundation for something what we call the renarration web. So I talked briefly about this some time ago, which is the web is growing so much. There are about 2 billion users on the internet now, but there are only 2 billion educated people in the world. But it's growing, right? We get 2 more billion soon, 1 more billion, something. Who are they? What will they do? Right? So those are the questions, right? So renarration web is about how, pretty much doing what I showed you. You can say, this is an interesting para, I'm going to say it in Malayalam. And just leave it like that. Somebody else will say, Oh, you don't know how to read that, but you're in this page and somebody has a Malayalam for you. I'll pick it up for you. It can be audio, it can be pictures. It's up to you. Right? You can actually convert a textual page into its multimedia narrative, very specific to Pandalam. I got it. So, okay, anyway, so these are the other projects. The other one is called Follow the Sheep. So where we, these are all volunteer based. You can all come follow the sheep. You can all come re-narrate. You can all come. So the Follow the Sheep is again like connected with this smartphones becoming popular, but who will it be used by and how, right? So if you can't read and write, okay, you can voice communicate in spite of it being a smartphone. That's good, but then what else can you do? You can take pictures, you can do videos, and then what else can you do? Is there something you can do? And if you are a shepherd, is there something you can do? So we follow them and we show them how they can do track where they have come from and all, and share it with maybe the family where maybe they want to go visit them or they want to come again next time. And we still don't know how they want to use, but one thing that's coming out is that they want to use it as a memory, not so much as networking and all, because it's a very competitive space. But let's say I went there and next time my cousin goes there, he'll know that, oh, in this place when I was here, when my cousin, when Dinesh was here, he negotiated with this farmer something else, so I can go talk. So based on the location, it's a very, very personalized service which tells them what happened when in the previous year when they came, right? But we're also a rights-based organization, so we are doing collecting the tracks and all that and showing that there are 20 million such people. Okay, so they need nomadic rights. So anyway, just a brief introduction. So send all your good people to work with us, volunteer with us. Any questions?
I have a question. So in that previous slide, what are the tech that you're using? Are you using Mapnik or something?
Yeah,
This one?
yeah. We're using map. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, map Tyler GDAL, but it also uses open layers and other things. But
Open layers.
yeah.
So, Dinesh, you started with talking about Humpy and experience being different for different people. So,
Huh.
say go to a heritage site like Humpy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I should come back and complete that. Okay, go on, Saurabh.
So, how would it map back to it being a different experience for a different person?
Huh. So basically that was the hint I was giving all along, which is what comes here changes depending on the user profile, right? And who you're working with potentially, because you kind of there are various ways to do it, right? Like the friends of the Facebook kind of thing, like who you're working with, their profiles, right? So the way it works is this is completely decentralized, and all this is coming in the browser, but it's not necessarily stored anywhere on earth, meaning it's stored in their own web pages, whoever has created them. It's not like a another corporate service that grabs all this and republishes it. It's not a republication, right? It might be cached, it might be CDN, it might be whatever, but the point is the query that goes from the browser to the service tells you who are your friends and who are the official expert groups and all that.
So, just think about it. I mean, wouldn't it be better if like, there are so many experts, right? There are 4 or 5 sites that you talk about being on Humpy itself. So all 4 or 5 narratives will be kind of different, right? So if I could choose between when I want to go in with a narrative of this particular kind,
Yeah.
which tells me more about the technical details or the
Yeah.
historic details.
Right.
So
Yeah. You if you prefer. So I'm just second guessing, but what happens is that Arun will come up with a very service which gives these narratives that are very specific to certain kind of the clientele that he wants to grab, right? So it's a very competitive space, right? Because you know that suddenly, okay, if for these techie groups that go from Bangalore, okay, if we can give this one click, two click something, and then say, okay, now this is where, you know, in this beautiful place you want to take your all-terrain mobiles, bikes, and go. Right? That's a narrative Arun wants to do, right? But he sees that as an opportunity. So what he will do is, in this space you will be walking in a very different way, you know, cross country doing something. Okay. The point is that's a service that somebody provides. The basic ones are provided by the expert groups, something else, right? That's still a walk, still a personalized thing, but it's a continuum of what you would see in a museum. A very well curated, plaqued audio thing, something, right? But it opens up. It's not a, you are not chained into that. And because of the open storage spaces, the tweets available for others, right? Maybe you have to negotiate because it's still personal stores, right? Say, Arun is okay with the BCB store, right? But he would be able to do something more with it. That answer your question?
kind of get. I mean, so what I had in mind was probably I could choose, like, I will. If you talk about my friends, I'll have all kinds of friends. I mean, there'll be 1,000 people in my Facebook profile, and all 1,000 will be 1,000 different types of friends. Some will be family, some will be friends. So if you talk about my profile being based on my friends, you will get a spread spectrum which is not leading to anything, kind of, if I say.
Okay.
But if I am going, then I have some thoughts in my mind. I would like to understand it this way. I would like to know what was the historic details or historically important events that happened here or at this place. One is that angle. The other angle is probably something like I would want to know what are the technical details of this particular place. Like this was etched by this mechanism, or so those are different narratives for the same place. Right? I mean,
See, there are
you
two.
can,
For me, you are talking about two things. One is a narrative for you, okay, and one is a narrative for the group you are gone with. Okay, so the narrative for you can be as customized as, you know, the more you add as what are your kind of things that interest you, it will customize itself, right? The one with the friends is what I think is more interesting. Is even though there are 1,000 people on your Facebook, the app will know only 5 of them are in this group who are gone with you today. Then it's almost like you're going together without that thing and talking. But this is just giving you the prompts to kind of, you know, it's like those badges that you get in. Maybe we should do once in the Barcamp thing, right? It'll tells you like beep 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 because we have the common interest. You know? But it's but it's like that. But you know, but it's going much deeper into the um, walk, taking you through the walk. That connects you better.
makes sense. And also, I mean, okay, I was looking at it a different way probably.
Yeah. So one thing that we're kind of on the burner is, let's say we close the autos that or boxes that take you through Humpy. Okay, because anybody can just do this, right? And then you sit in there and you have these 3 projectors, it will project what is outside. So if you open the window also you see it, right? But when you close it, you will see how it was, right? Like wearing goggles, right? So it's a very available technology. It will only cost like 20,000 or so. Okay. But then what you see in this outer box, like the box, first thing is there are 3 people together, not one person, right? One person is a very different kind of experience. So what you interact, how you interact with this thing that you're seeing is based on, what a child says, what a father wants to talk about, what, it's all the whole thing, right? You're not leaving the interpersonal space just because you have this thing in your hand, right? Okay. Any other questions?
So, and just to sum up this thing, what I understood now is like when you're going with a group, it kind of matches with your group and gives you contextual information based on the group's thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, how the group.
Yeah. For example, once we went there, there's a beautiful step well in Hampi, most amazing. But the guy who was Moroccan with us was comparing it to something that's available in the Middle East. It's, and that shifted everything for me. The fact that his experience from there compared at about the same time, how significant water was, how elevated it was in terms of how the kings and the palaces guarded this, right? So, which actually now it's coming back to that. Like if you go to Saudi Arabia, petrol is cheaper than water, right? You can dig wells and get petrol and all that, but where do you get your water? So you start guarding what water means to you. So only the kings will have a lot of water in Saudi Arabia. Right? So, all right, thanks for coming. I'm glad I pulled you all in.
Glad you pulled us in.